All right, so hello everyone. Um, my name is Richard Duansa, and I'm going to walk you through some legal aspects of business management. By way of outline, I would introduce you to the Ghana legal system because business thrives within a particular legal system, and so you need to appreciate that whatever you do in business, you are operating within a certain legal system, and then I'll run you through some legal vehicles for doing business. From there, we'll look at elements of a valid contract. And then we'll also consider other contractual arrangements, and we'll look at the law of agency, and then some concluding comments. Now, by way of introduction to the Ghana legal system, when we talk about a legal system, we are looking at the set of laws and then the institutions for making and enforcing the laws. And so in Ghana, you have the constitution, which itself is also the primary source of law in Ghana. It has a list of the sources of law in Ghana in Article 11 of the constitution. And they say that the constitution itself is a source of law. Acts of parliament, that is whether it's Contract Act or Sale of Goods Act or what have you, acts of parliament. So they are also sources of law in Ghana. You have some other sources. I mean, they are all very detailed materials under each of the sources of law. But for our present purpose, we just want to know that these are the sources of law, which are also the sources of business and commercial laws in Ghana. Mostly laws that are passed by Parliament. And then also common law. Common law is basically judge-made laws. Laws or principles or rules of law that are derived from court cases. So those are common law generally. And then rules of equity and what have you. So they are all sources of law in Ghana. And in terms of the institutions for the making and enforcing laws, you have Parliament, which is a law-making body. So Parliament passes law, and then the judiciary enforces the law through the court system. And so you have, by way of hierarchy, the Supreme Court being the highest court of the land, followed by the Court of Appeal, and then the High Court, the Circuit Court, and the District Court, in that order. And these courts, the court system is graded such that it determines or it tells that there must be a reason why you would go to the circuit court and not the district court, right? And so for our present purpose, I just indicated the monetary limits or the monetary jurisdictions. Why would somebody go to the district court and not to the high court? Of course, at the lower courts, the fees are much lower, and then the processes are not as strict as the higher courts. Anyway, but in terms of the monetary limits, what it means for business persons is that if I have a claim against somebody and the claim does not exceed 20,000 Ghana cedis, then I can go to the district court. If it exceeds 20,000 Ghana cedis, then I should be looking at the circuit court or the high court. And the circuit court limit is from 1 cedi to 50,000 Ghana cedis. So that's the limit for circuit court. And then for the high court, it has no limit. So any amount at all, you can take it to the high court. And we are not only talking about debts, money debts. We are talking about even a transaction or even a land transaction, the value of which, exceeds these limits. So that's the point about the monetary limits of the courts. The Court of Appeal is specifically an appellate court. You can't start a case in the Court of Appeal. And the Supreme Court, you can't start a case in the Supreme Court. There are only 3 instances where you can start a case in the Supreme Court, but those are not even related to commercial transactions. Those are basically number one, constitutional issues of constitutional interpretation. That when you go to the Supreme Court, and then number two, issues of presidential election petition, what we witnessed in 2013 between the current president Akufo-Addo and then the then president Mahama. So presidential election petition goes to the Supreme Court. Constitutional interpretation goes to the Supreme Court straight. And then, of course, appeals from the Judicial Committee of the National House of Chiefs. That one too, you go straight to the Supreme Court. Otherwise, you have to appeal from the Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court. You don't start any case in the Supreme Court. So for commercial disputes, for business disputes, you would normally go to either the District Court, the Circuit Court, or the High Court to start the case. And then, the court system versus ADR. ADR is Alternative Dispute Resolution. You realize that for the court system, you need money to hire a lawyer. The processes may be complicated, technical, and so it has been advised that for commercial disputes, disputing parties could use, ADR mechanisms such as negotiation, mediation, and arbitration to resolve the commercial disputes, right? Those ones are more flexible because the parties choose when to meet and when to have their sessions and all that. In fact, so negotiation is basically where the disputing parties by themselves seek to resolve the disputes without involving a third party. That's negotiation. But mediation is where a third party is invited to help or to facilitate the resolution of the matter. And for that, so, but for arbitration is it's more akin to a court system, because arbitration, you can even bring your lawyers, you are coming to actually make a case before the arbitrator, and then the arbitrator will in the end give a decision. But the difference between mediation and arbitration is that one of the differences is that for mediation, you don't the mediator does not give a decision, but for arbitration, the arbitrator will give a decision called the arbitration award, and that decision or that award is binding. It's like a judgment of a court, and it's binding on the parties. You can enforce it the way you would enforce a court. Now, having generally highlighted the issues concerning the legal system, now I want to consider legal vehicles for doing business in Ghana. So if you want to do business, if you want to venture into some commercial, some commercial venture, how do you do it? How do you go about it? You can register a business name, and in that circumstance, you would be a sole proprietor. So this is somebody who owns a business, and then there's no difference legally, there's no difference between the business owner and the business itself. You only register a name. Say you want to register under a name, Don't Mind Your Wife Enterprise. Don't Mind Your Wife Enterprise. So you go and register the name, Don't Mind Your Wife Enterprise, and then you trade under it. In that case, it is not a company. So, all the losses of the business are the losses of the company, of the owner. All the losses of the business are the losses of the owner. All the assets of the business are owned by the owner. And if there is any legal battle, you sue the owner, because the owner's liability is unlimited. But you can also do business by going through a limited liability company. This is where you incorporate a company, and then that company becomes a legal person, separate from the owners or the shareholders, and then separate from the directors or the managers. So that is it. There are several implications for incorporating a company to do business. There are several regulatory requirements to be met, filing of returns and all that, filing of tax returns, and a lot more. So normally running a limited liability company limited liability company is more complicated than doing a sole proprietorship. But you see, with a limited liability company, you are able to get other investors to invest in the company. You can sell shares to other people to become part owners. So there are a lot of flexibilities in using a limited liability company. But to decide to use a limited liability company will probably depend on the industry in which you want to explore. There are some industries that you can't use, you must necessarily register a limited liability company, like the oil and gas, offshore oil and gas business. An oil company. There are some businesses you can't just do it by registering a business name, a sole proprietorship, because the law that regulates it requires so. For instance, in the financial sector, you can run a business, you can run a bank or any financial institution with a sole proprietorship. No, because the regulation requires that, right? Okay. And then okay, the other one is partnerships. So the requirement is that a minimum of two and a maximum of 20 individuals can come together to do a business under a partnership. And they will have a partnership agreement, and then their relationship will be regulated by the content of the partnership agreement, which they are required to register, and then that binds the parties. Normally, the liability of partners are usually joint and several, except where they are limited by the partnership agreement. So what it means is that if you're a partner and then the partnership itself, which is a legal entity, is owing somebody, the person can sue both the partnership and then the the partners. So that if the partnership as a business does not have money to pay the debts, then the partners will be called upon to also contribute to paying the debt. I mean, of course, there are several other qualifications in there, and then you can also do a joint venture. You can enter into a joint venture by executing a joint venture agreement, what we call JVA, and that one, an individual and a company can enter into a joint venture. Two companies can enter into a joint venture, and all that. You don't need to register a joint venture, except that there are certain industries, like I indicated earlier. There are certain industries that if you want to explore, then you need to incorporate the joint venture. One is the oil industry, the oil and gas industry, and those kinds of things. And then there are certain if gonna you are going to do a joint venture with a foreigner under the you're required to incorporate that joint venture so long as there's a foreigner involved, and that is by virtue of the um, okay. As a Ghana Investment Promotion Center, the law that regulates the Ghana Investment Promotion, GIPC. Yes, I mean a joint venture involving a foreigner is required to be registered and all that. So long as where the investment exceeds a certain amount, that one they regularly review that amount. The last time I checked, I think it was about was it 30,000 Ghana cedis or so, where the investment you know exceeds a certain amount, then you are required to register to for somebody to go and kill another person. That's clearly an illegal contract. Anyway, so apart from the general, contractual arrangement that we enter into on a daily basis, you also have some other contractual arrangements which are specifically regulated by law, right? So, for instance, a contract of sale of goods is regulated by the Sale of Goods Act. There are peculiar, specific, examples or illustrations for such contracts or requirements for such contracts. And then an insurance contract is regulated by the Insurance Act, and then a building contract, transactions relating to land. You see, there are specific laws So there is a Conveyancing Act which talks about how you can grant an interest in land to another person. So if you do a contract relating to land or a landed property, it has to fulfill certain requirements in those specific laws. Share sale and purchase agreement. If you want to purchase shares, there are specific laws that also affect your ability to enter into those agreements, right? And then and all that. There are a lot more others, but what we are saying at this point is that if you are entering into a contract, it's important to seek legal advice so that you don't expose yourself or your business to all kinds of risks. Now, agency, briefly, let me touch on agency. And when we talk about agency, we are talking about a situation where you know one person called the principal authorizes another person to enter into legal relations with others, with third parties on his behalf. So A authorizes B to enter into a transaction with T, third party. So A is the principal. He authorizes B, the agent. And then B enters into a contract with the third party. Now, even though it is B that enters into the contract is binding on A, the principal, right? And I mean, you can ask somebody to conduct a specific transaction on your behalf. You can also appoint an agent who is a general agent, so that the person can do all manner of legal transactions on your behalf and all that. An agency may be created expressly by agreement or impliedly by the conduct of the parties. You know, if I give an impression to third parties that, oh, you are the person that does business for me and on my behalf, then I stand the risk of you entering into some transaction and that transaction being binding on me. Generally, the agent is supposed to act within the scope of his authority. He shouldn't go beyond the bounds of his authority. But if you go beyond, then we say that you are on the frolic of your own, and so you can be personally held liable for some conduct. By way of a concluding comment, let me say that it's very important. It is very important to seek advice or give attention to legal issues that come up in the course of business, because legal tussle can just collapse your business and all that. It's also important to read wide. There's so much information available on the internet. At least read some book, read something on the internet to become aware of the issues that you are confronted with before you even talk to a lawyer. And try as much as possible to seek legal advice for any transaction that you want to enter into. Sorry, it's better to it's better and it's safer to pay something little for advice than to just do anything by yourself without consulting a lawyer or without seeking legal advice, right? Yeah, so basically those are the issues that we set out to address. Thank you for your attention. Any questions?